Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Playing with Power MTG, where we play with the most powerful cards in the most powerful formats. Tonight's game is brought to you by TCGplayer.com, where you can find all of your cards online while still supporting local game stores. Dragon Shield for all the best accessories to protect your decks, and through Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. Tonight's game features the Playing with Power team on some of their classic decks duking it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. This episode was made possible by all of our supporters over on Patreon. Our Patreon offers tons of benefits, including Discord access and live streaming, behind the scenes footage, raw gameplay, additional gameplay series, merchandise discounts, and archive footage of old games as well. We have tiers at all budgets, so sign up today. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Mike, piloting the partner pair of Tevesh Szat, Doom of Fools, and Kraum, Ludovic's Opus. This is a turbo ad nauseum deck that relies on its commanders to grind value. His opening hand contains a Mox Opal, Cloud of Fairies, Mana Crypt, Lotus Petal, Jeweled Lotus, Unsubstantiate, and a Fierce Guardianship. Next, we have Ryan, piloting Godo, Bandit Warlord. This is a classic deck that is all about ramping to 11 mana, casting Godo, and equipping Godo with Helm of the Host. His opening hand contains a City of Traders, Panharmonicon, Welding Jar, Magnetic Theft, and his London Mulligans are Gemstone Caverns, Lightning Bolt, and a Pyrokinesis. After that, we have Zach, piloting Cast, Dissonant Mage. This is a mid-range deck with multiple avenues to victory, such as Storm, Consultation, Mnemonic Betrayal, and Underworld Breach. His opening hand contains a Volcanic Island, City of Brass, Soul Ring, Spell Pierce, Time Twister, Brain Freeze, and Heuristic Study. Finally, we have Folger, piloting Tasigur, the Golden Fang. This is a control list that looks to stop opponents while grinding value and then using Tasigur's ability to recur interaction. His opening hand contains an Ancient Tomb, Swamp, Forest, Island, Demonic Tutor, Opposition Agent, and his London Mulligan is a snow-covered island. Without further ado, let's begin this kind kindred kinky kooky kinetic killing spree. Mike wins the Gummy Bear Eating Challenge and gets to start us off. Mike draws a card for turn and plays a Blood Crypt into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts a Mox Opal. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Lotus Petal. Mike casts a Jeweled Lotus, and the table sighs. If you ever had the pleasure of playing with Mike, this is basically what you usually expect. He cracks Jeweled Lotus for 3 blue and casts his commander, Kraum, Ludovic's Opus. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kraum. Zach takes it, and Mike passes. Ryan draws a card for turn and plays a Dwarven Ruins. He casts a Welding Jar. He passes to Zach. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Volcanic Island. He casts a Soul Ring and ships the turn to Folger. Folger draws a card for turn and plays an Ancient Tomb. He ends his turn. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws, moves to combat, and then attacks Zach with Kraum. Zach takes the hit, and Mike passes. Ryan draws, takes no game actions, and passes the turn. Zach draws and plays a City of Brass. He ends his turn. Folger draws and then starts off by paying 2 life to cast a Taxian Probe targeting Mike. In response, Zach flashes in a Hull Breacher. Hull Breacher resolves, and Mike responds by casting Unsubstantiate targeting Hull Breacher. Hull Breacher returns to Zach's hand, and Probe resolves. Folger looks at Mike's hand and draws a card. He plays an island and passes. At the end of Folger's turn, Mike cycles Cloud of Fairies and draws a card. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. He casts a Windfall. In response, Zach taps City of Brass and casts Spell Pierce, targeting Windfall. In a surprise move, Mike doesn't pay for it and the Windfall is countered. Mike moves to combat and attacks Zach with Kraum. Zach takes another 4 commander damage and Mike ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a City of Traders. He casts a Mana Vault. Ryan considers some plays, decides to play around Kraum, and ships the turn. Zach draws, holds open mana, and passes. Folger draws and plays a Swamp. In what seems like a recurring theme this game, he also holds open mana and passes. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zach with Kraum. Zach takes it, and Mike ends the turn. Ryan draws and then cracks his Dwarven Ruins for 2 red. He casts his commander, Godo, Bandit Warlord. In response, Folger taps Ancient Tomb to flash in an Opposition Agent. Godo resolves, the ETB triggers, and Ryan declines to search. He passes. At the end of Ryan's turn, Zach flashes in Hull Breacher. In response, Mike casts a Red Elemental Blast, targeting Hull Breacher. Blast counters Hull Breacher, and the turn moves to Zach. Zach draws and casts a Heuristic Study. He ends his turn. Folger draws and plays a Forest. He passes the turn. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Steam Fence into play untapped, paying 2 life. He casts his other commander, Tevesh Szat, Doom of Fools. He activates Tevesh's first ability and creates 2 Thrall tokens. He passes. During his draw step, Ryan takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He moves to combat and attacks Folger with Godo. Godo triggers, untaps, and Ryan gets an additional combat. Folger takes the first hit, and in his second combat step, Ryan attacks Folger again with Godo. Folger takes it again, and Ryan passes. Zach draws and plays a Wooded Foothills. He taps City of Brass to cast Narset, Harder of Veils. He activates Narset's ability. He looks at the top 4 cards of his library and then puts a Felwar Stone into his hand. Zach ends his turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Folger casts Assassin's Trophy targeting Tevesh Szat. Rhystic Study triggers and Folger pays. In response, Mike casts Fierce Guardianship for its alternate cost, targeting Assassin's Trophy. Rhystic Study triggers and Zach draws. Fierce Guardianship counters Assassin's Trophy and the turn goes to Folger. Folger draws per turn, does nothing else, and ships the turn to Mike. During his upkeep, Mike wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Narset with Crom. Narset dies, and in his second main phase, Mike activates Tevesh's first ability and creates 2 more Thrall tokens. He casts a Rhystic Study. Zach's Rhystic Study triggers, and in response, Folger taps Ancient Tomb to flash in Hullbreacher, paying for Rhystic Study. In response, Mike casts Pyroblast, targeting Hullbreacher and paying for Rhystic again. Folger responds by casting Force of Will, paying a life, and exiling a blue card from his hand, targeting Pyroblast, paying for Rhystic Study. Force of Will counters Blast, Hullbreacher resolves, Zach declines a draw from Rhystic Study, and then Mike's Rhystic Study resolves. Mike plays a Swamp and passes. During his draw step, Ryan takes a damage from his Mana Vault. He moves to combat and attacks Tevesh Szat with Godo. Godo triggers and untaps. Mike chump blocks with a Thrall. Ryan attacks Tevesh Szat again with Godo, and then Mike chumps with another Thrall. Ryan ships the turn to Zach. Zach draws and casts a Talisman of Dominance. He casts a Felwar Stone. Crom triggers and Folger creates a treasure. Zach passes the turn. Folger draws and casts a Demonic Tutor. He fetches up a card into his hand. He taps Ancient Tomb and casts a Time Twister. Crom triggers, and in response, Zach taps City of Brass and casts Winds of Rebuke, targeting Hullbreacher. Hullbreacher bounces to Folger's hand, and each player mills 2. Crom's trigger resolves, and Mike draws a card. Time Twister resolves, and each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library and draws 7. Folger plays a Snow-Covered Forest and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Mike loses his Mana Crypt flip and takes 3 damage. He draws and plays a Mana Confluence. He casts a Chrome Mox, paying for Rhystic Study. It resolves, and he imprints Diabolic Intent. He casts Red Elemental Blast, targeting Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study triggers, and Zach draws. Then Rhystic Study is destroyed. Mike taps Mana Confluence to cast a Windfall. In response, Zach exiles Simian Spirit Guide from his hand to create a red. With Windfall still in the stack, Folger cracks his treasures for a black and casts Assassin's Trophy, targeting Tevesh Szat. Rhystic Study triggers, and Mike draws. Trophy destroys Tevesh Szat, and Mike declines his search. Windfall resolves, each player discards their hand, and then draws 7. Mike casts a Dark Ritual and creates 3 black. Of course, he happened to draw Ad Nauseam. He casts Ad Nauseam. It resolves, and he reveals a Jeweled Lotus, Mnemonic Betrayal, Flooded Strand, Force of Negation, Arid Mesa, Dockside Extortionist, Gamble, Chain of Vapor, Exotic Orchard, Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat, City of Brass, Miscast, and Thassa's Oracle, deciding to stop there. He casts Jeweled Lotus. He cracks Lotus Petal and casts Chain of Vapor, targeting his own Mox Opal. It returns to his hand, and Mike continues the chain. He sacrifices a Mana Confluence and targets Mana Crypt with a copy. Mana Crypt bounces, Mike sacrifices a Swamp and targets Chrome Mox with a copy. He ends the chain and then recasts Mana Crypt. He casts Mox Opal. He casts Dockside Extortionist. It enters, and in response, Ryan sacrifices his Welding Jar, targeting his Mana Vault to keep Mike off of more treasures. Mike then creates 4 treasures. He casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Brainstorm. He cracks some of his treasures to cast Mnemonic Betrayal. His opponents exile their graveyards. He casts a Mana Crypt from exile. He casts a Dockside Extortionist from exile. It enters, and then Mike creates 4 more treasures. He casts Thassa's Oracle. With the ETB on the stack, he casts Demonic Consultation from exile. Mike exiles his library, Thassa's Oracle trigger resolves, and Mike wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a game. Congrats to Mike on his win. His deck is very powerful, and he is an amazing pilot. He got to show off one of the strengths of this deck by just ramping out his commanders ridiculously fast and then using them to generate so much value. The most valuable card goes to Mnemonic Betrayal. This card is absolutely nuts in CEDH. It's effectively Yawgmoth's Will, but you get to access your opponent's graveyards instead of your own. The combination of wheels, failed win attempts, and card overlap in the format makes this card a 1-card win con late in the game. This episode was made possible by all of your support. Support from viewers like you is what enables us to bring this to the world. If you want to help out, consider signing up to Patreon, buying some merchandise at our store, or purchasing cards from the TCG Player links in the description. All of these help us bring content to you, and you get some awesome merchandise, cards at great prices, and cool Patreon perks. If you cannot help financially, liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing these videos goes such a long way as well. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Alright, time for Patreon shoutouts. I'd like to give a shout out to J-Rock, Wayan, Spielrahu, Sparks, Zods, Dylan Becker, Philip Hickey, Sanguinolency, Matt Wingrove, Snarps the Klept, Fur Berglund, Rakeko, Nick, Dante, CZ, Baby Jeebus, Pyro, Trey Payne, Dark, Delphdriz, Noah Saldana, and Brad Tobin. Thanks a lot, everyone. Really appreciate it.